Hey guys, welcome back to Status Detail, and today we ask the all-important question: does a new car like this 992 GT3 need paint correction? Let's find out. All right, let's get into it. I get excited about detailing Porsches, and this thing looks fantastic. Look at the back of this car. Holy cow, it's like one of the coolest looking Porsche GT3s like ever that they've ever made. So let's jump into this. This car is currently dirty. It's Carrera white, so it shows the dirt a little extra. The wheels are dirty, all that stuff needs to be cleaned. We're gonna do a wash in a second, and we'll film some of that. But the point is, I did a little inspection on the car as it sits right now. And unfortunately, the paint is in not terrific condition from what I've already can see. So after we wash it, I'm a little scared that it's going to be even worse, because if I already see problems when it's dirty, that's not a good start. So the age-old question is, and people always ask, like, you know, my car is brand new, do I need to paint correct it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. And this car is a perfect example, especially if you have a Porsche. Porsches are almost always terrible when they're brand new. So yeah, you need to paint correct your brand new car. So I'll show you some shots on this car the way it looks right now. Then we're gonna do that wash. Then we're gonna pull it back in and I'll give you a proper inspection under, like, you know, a clean surface that we can really look at. And then we'll talk a little bit on process to paint correct the Porsche, because it's kind of a unique paint surface to work on, because as many of you know who are probably watching this, Porsche has very soft paint. Which is kind of a blessing and a curse, just depends how you want to look at it. So let's jump into the inspection stuff, and then we'll jump into that wash. So you can see on the back of the car here, we do have some like rub marks and swirl marks. This is the fender on this car, same side. And again, we're dealing with the same fender, just a different section of it. You can see the clarity difference in the bottom of the door. It literally almost looks like the door has been painted. There's like a different level of orange peel, a different level of clarity. Like, it's very, I don't know, diffused. You know, the way that light looks now, and make sure we're in focus, like, to the best of our ability here. It just doesn't look right? See the difference? See how the clarity is so different? So hopefully we can polish some of that out of the bottom of the door, but it's almost like the door was painted poorly. I don't know how else to say it. You look at the light, the little circle that's moving, it's not right. Something's off with the bottom of that door, the way it was painted. That's an OEM painting issue. And again, you can just see how bad that is in certain sections of the paint. So we're gonna have to fix all that stuff. It's literally in the entire hood, top to bottom. So all of that needs to get polished. And by the front of the hood here, this is like a frunk. So you open this and you close this a lot. And obviously because of that, you get lots of swirl marks in the front of the car here. So some of this stuff could be from the dealership. This is in the PPF on the driver side. This is factory PPF, not like anything that we added on the car. And you can just see, you know, this needs polishing. Brand new PPF, literally. Only 1,000 miles. I don't know if the car can't be washed more than 1 or 2 times total. And just for all those people out there who are always like, PPF is great. PPF gets swirl marks. We talked about that in one of our recent videos. So thankfully we can paint correct this, even though it's plastic. This is all the crap that's in the wing. All of this is going to get fixed. You can see that weird like flare coming out of the light again, which is like someone attempted to polish this maybe at some point at the dealership or the factory. But I mean, just look at all that. There's a lot of swirl marks and stuff in the wing here. So it's in various spots, but kind of hit or miss in certain spots. Like on this side, really bad. We're further on the right side of the wing now. You can see that right side of the swan neck, and then like it's just really freaking bad right here. I don't know what's going on. And then in the middle of the wing, it's not too bad. So I don't know how that happens. Probably part of the delivery wrap coming off, something getting wiped off. There could have been glue residue here that they tried to remove. Whatever the case may be, paint correction is required. That wraps up inspection number 1. Was anyone even surprised that that was terrible? I mean, maybe people who are new to the channel might be surprised, but I know my OG original followers and stuff knew that that was going to be a little bit of a mess. on a new Porsche. Anyways, let's jump into that wash and cue the cinematic montage. Cold start on a new 992 GT3. And with the valves open. Oh yeah, way better. So we are done with the wash, and you can see the front of this and all these marks I told you about originally look way worse, which is what I was kind of afraid of. So you can see, I mean, this was polished by somebody not very well, and that's why we're looking at all these weird marks all over the place. It's pretty consistent across the entire front of the hood, and you know, down here it's pretty bad, and we've got some of these swirl marks in the front by the emblem. Most of this is probably just from people closing this when they were doing the inspection at the dealership, and maybe even the owner. But like we said originally, new cars need polish or paint correction or whatever you want to call it. They need some help, because that's really bad. I mean, look at that. Holy crap! Like that's really bad. So we got to fix all that. Same thing again. This is the driver door. Like, pretty freaking bad, man. It shouldn't look like that. So I'm assuming the dealership polished it. Tough to say. Doesn't really matter. It's in bad shape. But good news, it can be fixed. Driver rear fender. And again, that wing is in really bad shape. So, you know, this was all, even though it was dirty before, we got a pretty good glimpse of what we were dealing with. And again, at the bottom of the door, we're dealing with that weird clarity thing going on where it's kind of, it doesn't look right. When we scroll all the way up to the top of the door, see how much different the top of the door looks in paint. I'm trying to get it to focus. There we go. Look at the little white dot. See how the clarity is good. Like, it's pretty like exacting, right? Like, it's not diffused. And then we go to the bottom.
And I'll try and get that focus for you in there. See how it's like, just it looks different, and it shouldn't look like that. The words are escaping me for what that is, but it's kind of diffused. There's no clarity, and like it looks like it's painted. It looks rough, honestly, is what it looks like. So we'll see if we can polish that out. I'm relatively 65% positive, 70% max that we'll be able to remove it. So we'll see.
So does a brand new car need to be paint corrected? The answer, obviously, yes. So you would expect that a brand new car like a 992 GT3 Porsche would be, in pretty good shape. It's a pretty expensive car. So how does all this stuff happen? So I know the owner goes to the Porsche dealership to pick his car up. When he sees it, it still has delivery wrap on it. For those that don't know, delivery wrap is how a car arrives to a dealership. So when it's in the transit process, the shipping process, they put like a big kind of cover and wrap over the car to make sure that basically the car is kept safe. Porsche manufacturing puts that on the car before it leaves the production plant. So when he saw the car, the owner, it still had that on the car, which means no one messed with it. And literally every panel that I showed you that had defects in it had covers on it. So he asked the dealership not to wash the car, so they pull everything off to make sure that the car is in good shape. You can decline to have the vehicle, that wrap removed. You can say, don't take that off. But from what I've understood, if you do that, and there are some horrible, unbelievably bad defects in the paint that anyone would see, that you're basically declining the ability to be like, hey, what the hell, and returning the car. So I do recommend you have them remove the wrap, maybe watch them remove it, just so you have the ability to say, I watched you literally scrape it with your keys or whatever when you were pulling it off. But anyways, he saw them pull the wrap off. He knows the car was in good shape, and he knows they didn't wash it. He knows they didn't buff it, polish it, whatever. It wasn't messed with by the dealership. So the question is, how does that happen? How does this car look the way it looks, even though we know that everyone involved didn't mess with it? Maybe it was washed, right? So the owner washed the car. It had 1,000 miles on it because when it came here, it had 1,000 miles on it, and that's because he drove it to do the break-in period. During his break-in period, he washed the car one time. He used products that are approved from my car care store. So he foamed the car, he washed it with light agitation, and when he was done, he put Gion Cure on it, and that's why the water was beating up so nicely on the car during the wash, was because it had Gion Cure, which is great. To any customer or future customer, if you're not actually a current customer, using a product like Gion Cure before you bring your car to me, if I'm booked or something, is a great way to put a little bit of protection on your car. Keeps it cleaner longer, and just in general, it's a great way to have protection on your car before you have hardcore 7-year protection on your car. Okay, so if he didn't scratch it and the dealership didn't scratch it, it leaves one person left to scratch it. So the manufacturer, which is Porsche, scratched it. During the production process, this car got scratched. So all the scratches in the wing, all those holograms and the little pigtail things on the front of the car, all of that stuff came from Porsche production plant. So they try and fix a lot of that stuff before the car leaves. And for example, a dust nib can go into the paint, which is like a little piece of dust, goes into the clear coat. It's like this little raised little thing that they'll sand out. It's totally normal for any manufacturer will do that. When they're done doing that, obviously you have to polish out the dust nib, the sanding mark. So when that happens, we often see the leftover of a sanding mark on a car, which is very normal and very easy to fix. But this car didn't have that, which means either they fixed the sanding mark really well so I don't see it, or it means that they just didn't have to remove any dust nibs because it didn't have any. Either way, that's good. The point is, because they have to do stuff like that, they will also fix anything else they see on the car that's not up to the standards of them by doing a polish. So because they're probably not super into this to the same level I am, they polish it to remove something, but then they don't check it the way I do, so you get those holograms left over, and that is why you end up needing to polish a brand new car. This car had lots of things all over the place, but even though the wing was so bad, it's confusing because if they were fixing things like that, they would have probably fixed the wing. It's impossible to tell. Also, as you saw in some of the clips there, the bottom parts of the doors were in way worse condition than the top parts of the door, and that is literally a defect in the painting process where the orange peel level is different and the clarity is worse and the gloss is worse. We fixed that probably to a 95% area. The last 5% we would probably have to wet sand out, and I wouldn't recommend doing that when it's such low visibility on the bottom of the car. If it was higher up, maybe near a door handle or something, we would wet sand it because that's high visibility. When it's lower and we got it so good, my idea of 95% perfect is your idea probably of 100% perfect, so I'm a little out there and crazy when it comes to some of that stuff. So the dealership can obviously cause problems to your paint And that's why we always say to be so careful about them washing it or about them detailing it or having them pull certain parts of the delivery wrap off, because they can cause problems to your paint that will cause defects similar to these. But this dealership had nothing to do with it. This was all Porsche manufacturing from when the car was built and produced and manufactured in Germany. That's where all this stuff came from. The delivery wrap went on top of all these problems and then delivered to the customer this way. The dealership had nothing to do with it, and it had nothing to do with washing. And it's very important to keep in mind, the customer and the dealership could not have caused any of these problems by washing it. All of the problems that were the holograms and the micro marring, those little like swirled out flare things, all of that comes from poor polishing. You cannot get those marks from washing. So he could not have done that, washing the car in his driveway. It's impossible because he would have had to polish it with some kind of spinning polisher to make those marks on the car. And we know the dealership didn't polish it, so same thing. Now the marks on the wing and some of the other things, those can be done from washing or really any kind of friction wiping. So any kind of microfiber going over it. Technically the owner could have caused some of those when he was drying it, but the wing stuff was way too deep to be any kind of normal light washing stuff. So don't go crazy in the comments and try and blame the owner for washing his car incorrectly. I'm 100% sure none of the marks that were on this car were from him. They were all from the manufacturing process and potentially maybe pulling delivery wrap off the car. This, my friends, is why you need a high-end detailer to paint correct or polish your brand new car. If you have a 992 GT3 order and you're in the general Chicagoland area, I specialize in detailing Porsches. I do so many of them, and I have a very specific process to make Porsche paint look absolutely perfect. I've seen everything you can ever see, from sanding marks to horrible things that I had to sand to fix on a car. So we've got you covered, and I'm basically your Porsche specialist for automotive detailing in the Chicagoland area. So if this video doesn't convince you, I don't know what will, but I'd love to work on more 992s. These are really, really cool cars, and I definitely know how to like unlock the gloss in your paint if you have one of these.